further ado, I want to introduce Shelly Brown with the SBA. Shelly, whenever you're ready, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. My name is Shelly Brown, Lender Relations Specialist with the Small Business Administration, and today we're going to go over the 2021 COVID-19 CARES Act, the Economic Aid Overview. If you're a member of the press, information provided today is off the record and is intended for educational purposes only. We'll be happy to speak to reporters directly and schedule an interview to go over any question and details you may have. With that, we'll get started. Chris, can you change the slide, please?
Sure.
So as I mentioned, I'm Shelly Brown, Lender Relations Specialist with the Small Business Administration in the New Mexico District Office. My contact information is there next to my pre-COVID picture, 248-8228. And then my email is shelly.brown@sba.gov. Next slide, please. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about where we are in this COVID relief program, the economic aid funding options, loan program details on the PPP and the EIDL, grant program that's available, the Target EIDL Advance, the Shuttered Venue grant, and then any additional assistance and resources will be available. Next slide. So where we are today is that Congress intended this round of COVID-19 economic aid funding to support the hardest hit small businesses and those in the underserved segments, including women, minorities, and veterans. The SBA is committed to ensuring that programs are launched as quickly as possible to deliver critical economic aid to America's small businesses and other eligible entities. SBA is the official site for any new updates for PPP or EIDL. If you Google it and you get something that's not on SBA's website, we do not consider it official. Next slide, please. So the SBA COVID-19 economic aid funding options are, there's loan programs and then there's grant programs. So the loan programs is the Payment Protection Program, also known as PPP. And then on the loan program, if you currently have an SBA loan, 7A, a 504, or a microloan with the lender, SBA will be offering some payment relief on those to make payments on your behalf. The EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, is still available, and then the targeted EIDL Advance will be available to some. Coming out soon is a Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, and which I'll go over more information on that later in the presentation. Next slide, please. The Payment Protection Program top takeaways. This expands the PPP eligibility and how the funds can be used. A borrower can now select a covered period between 8 weeks and 24 weeks to use the funds. When this first came out last year, it was mandated that you use the funds within 8 weeks, but nobody realized that this pandemic would last this long. So there were a lot of businesses that received the PPP loan, but was unable to pay employees within that 8-week period, pay the bills that were due. So it was extended to the 24-week period. So that's why the 8 and 24 weeks. The new Payment Protection Program offers a second draw PPP loan options for hardest hit small businesses and allows deductions for expenses covered with forgiven PPP loan debt on federal taxes. So last year, the IRS came out with a notice that said, if you receive a PPP loan and you applied for forgiveness and those expenses that were forgiven by the PPP loan, you are not allowed to deduct those expenses on your taxes. Well, that has been retracted and you are now able to deduct those expenses that you use the PPP funds for, and that was forgiven. You're allowed to deduct those on your taxes. SBA came out with an updated simplified forgiveness form on the PPP loans up to $150,000, which I'll go into a little bit more. And then 80% of PPP loans were submitted in 2020. So we've already processed a lot of those PPP loans from last year, and payments have been forgiven on those. We will no longer subtract that EIDL Advance, also known as that disaster grant or disaster, when you applied for the disaster loan. So if you received an idle advance and then you received a PPP loan, when you submitted your forgiveness form, the SBA would deduct whatever that advance was. Let's say it was $2,000. We would deduct that $2,000 from your PPP application, leaving you with a balance owed to the lender. That has been taken away, and SBA is working to submit those advances back to the lender. And I'll go into a little bit more information. Next slide, please. So what is a first draw PPP? This is for eligible applicants that did not receive a PPP loan prior to August 9th. If you did not receive a PPP loan last year, maybe because you didn't think you would need it, or the closing period ended before you could apply, or maybe your business wasn't eligible at the time, you now may be eligible to apply for a first round PPP. So PPP loan eligibilities now include additional types of entities that were not eligible last year. So if you weren't eligible last year and we've opened it up to these certain businesses, then you may be eligible for that. The covered eligible expenses are expanded. And then, as I mentioned, the borrower can set a covered period to use the PPP loan proceeds for any length between 8 and 24 weeks after disbursement. What's important about that? Let's say you do get the PPP loan and you use it within 2 weeks. You don't have to wait for the whole 8 weeks to apply for forgiveness. If you use the funds and have proof that you use the funds for what it was intended for, you are now eligible to apply for forgiveness. You don't have to wait the 8 or 24 weeks if the funds have been used. Certain borrowers may request an increase on their original PPP loan. So if you received a PPP loan last year, let's say it's a seasonal business, we have additional guidance on increasing those seasonal businesses and obtaining a little bit more money. So you can go back to your original lender and see if you can get the increase on the PPP loan based on the expanded criteria. You must have been in business prior to February 15th, 2020. And this is due to expire on March 31st, 2021. So you must apply on or before March 31st, 2021, or until congressional appropriations are exhausted. With that being said, we had 284, it's almost 285, it's 284.5, I think, billion with a B, dollars appropriated for PPP. As of last Friday, 100 billion was made in PPP loans, leaving quite a bit of money still left on the table. So, but you do have to apply on or before March 31st. Next slide, please. So the first draw PPP loan eligibility, you must comply with the side standards as set by SBA. On the first draw is 500 employees or less. Newly eligible are housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, certain 501c6 organizations such as Chamber of Commerce's, and eligible news organizations. Still eligible, and this is where some confusion came in, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals are eligible for a PPP loan. You are an employee. If you're just the sole proprietor, you're the employee. You can apply for a PPP loan. If you file a Schedule C, the magic line is line 31. So you would take line 31, you would divide that by 12 and multiply that by 2.5, and that is your PPP amount. So you can apply. You'd have to provide the lender if you did not receive. Last year, there was a lot of sole proprietors or independent contractors who were 1099 that didn't know or think they were eligible. And at first, maybe there was not guidance on whether or not they would be eligible, but that was expanded. And yes, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals are eligible. With that being said, if you are a sole proprietor and then you have contractors doing some business for you, you pay them a 1099. Those are not considered your employees. Independent contractors are their own employee. They're self-employed as well. So you cannot, if you're a sole proprietor and you have, let's say, 5 independent contractors that you rely on to do certain things, You cannot count those 5 as employees. They're self-employed themselves, so they would have to apply themselves. Still eligible are business entities, partnerships, corporations, and LLCs, 501c3 nonprofits, 501c19 veteran organizations, and tribal businesses are still eligible. Next slide, please. So what is a second draw PPP loan? Second draw is for borrowers that previously received a PPP loan. So if you did not receive the PPP loan last year, you must apply for the first draw PPP loan first before you can apply for the second draw. The second draw is for borrowers that previously received a PPP loan, have 300 employees or less. So first draw is 500, second draw is 300 or less. That's where they're earmarking funds for those smallest businesses and possibly hardest hit. And then you must prove that you suffered a 25% reduction in gross receipts. For any borrower, the maximum loan amount for the second draw PPP is a 2.5 times average your monthly 2019 and 2020 payroll costs. For borrowers that are in the accommodation and food service industries that carry a NAICS code that begins with 7.2, the maximum loan amount for the second draw is a 3.5 times your average monthly 2019 or 2020 payroll costs. So those with the NAICS code is 7.2 receive a little bit more money than those that are not. Second draw PPP loan applicants must submit the information on Form SBA 2483 SD. SD is for second draw. That's the borrower's application. You apply for that loan with the lender. Most lenders have everything online, so you would apply online with them. And that's why it's very important that you know which one you're applying for, because they'll have the forms in their system as the first draw or the second draw. Next slide, please. Second draw PPP loan eligibility. Again, you must have received your first draw PPP loan, and covered periods cannot overlap. That's the reason why you cannot apply for round 1 and round 2 at the same time. You have to indicate that yes, you've used the funds in full, and then now you're eligible for the second draw loan before you can before funds will be dispersed. You cannot, the periods cannot overlap. Your payroll periods cannot overlap. You have no more than 300 employees. And this one is very, very important. You must demonstrate that you have at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between a comparable quarter in 2019 and 2020. It isn't throughout the whole year. It is a quarter by quarter comparison. So it's important that you look at your quarters and determine maybe which one has the highest reduction, and that is the quarter that you would use. There is no rounding up. So if you have a quarter that's 24.5 or 6, 24.6, let's say, you cannot round that up to 25% to qualify. You have to have 25% or greater. So that's why it's important that you look at your quarters to determine maybe which one gives you the full advantage of that. And the quarters are actual calendar quarters. They're not quarters that you can say from February to wherever. It has to be from January to what? January, February, March, April, to May. Wait, January, February, March, April. Yeah, May. So it has to be an actual calendar quarter, not quarters that you just decide randomly. Next slide, please. The PPP loan application process, again, this is a lender loan. So you apply with the lender. And again, as I mentioned, most lenders are doing everything online. So, and I've Googled a lot of lenders, and I put in their name and then a slash PPP, and it takes me right to their site and gives directions on how to apply for the PPP loan. If you do not have a lender, we suggest that if you have a banking relationship, a business banking relationship with your lender, check with them first, since they have your business information. That may be the easiest for you. If not, then you can find a lender on sba.gov/lender-match. What you'll do is you'll complete the application and include any supporting documentation that's required. If you need help with some applications or questions, you can contact me. but I'm going to go over our resource partners that are there to help you as well. Once you apply for the application, it's not an instantaneous approval. There are filters in place to determine what is eligible. If somebody applies for a loan, let's say they applied online, and some of these online lenders, they filled it out to 4, 5, 6, however many lenders, and then people start inputting the loan. Whoever put the loan in first, everybody else after that is going to say an application is already in the system. So it won't go to 4 or 5 different lenders like it did the first time. Those are filters in place, and that's the reason why we don't give an instantaneous approval. Once the lender does receive a loan number from SBA, that is the indication that SBA has approved the loan, and then the lender will close that loan and fund it. Again, March 31st is the deadline to apply for the loan, or if appropriated funds are exhausted. Next slide, please. The PPP loan maturity, the terms of maturity, this is if the loan is not 100% forgiven. So if you applied for a loan at $10,000 and you do not use the funds accordingly, then there is a chance that your loan will not be 100% forgiven. Ultimately, you want it to be forgiven, because at that point it becomes a grant basically. But if you have any remaining balance left over, that becomes a loan owed to the lender. The fixed interest rate is 1%. It's non-compounding and not adjustable. There's no requirement for collateral or personal guarantees. There's no fees or prepayment penalties. The term for the second round is a 5-year term. If you received a PPP loan last year and you've not applied for forgiveness, it could be, if you applied before June 5th, that term is 2 years. You can always ask your lender to extend the loan to 5 years if you're unable to make those payments that are due. Payments start once the borrower knows how much the PPP loan will be forgiven, and then the lender will notify the borrower. So when you apply for forgiveness, and again, you must apply, it is not automatic. So you apply for forgiveness, you submit it to the lender reviews it, sends it to SBA. SBA will determine what amount will be forgiven and send the confirmation to the lender along with payment. If anything is remaining, that's when the lender will reach out to you, let you know what your balance is and what the payments are and when they are due. It's very, very important that you double check everything before you submit it, because a lot of lenders are doing everything electronically. There have been a lot of errors. I had a borrower just a few days ago that thought that he had to ask for forgiveness of 60%. 60% is the magic number to be 100% forgiven if you used it for payroll and could show that you used it for payroll. When he was asking for the forgiveness, he only put in 60% of the loan amount. Well, the lender approved it at the 60%. It went on to SBA. SBA didn't review, who, what, where, when, why, just reviewed the amount. The lender wanted 60%. That's what was paid. When they got paid, then the borrower came back and said, I shouldn't owe anything. Well, the borrower made the mistake. The lender submitted it. SBA paid it. Well, now the lender has to go back, and that's extra paperwork for the borrower, the lender, SBA. So as of now, he owes the additional 40% because he did not fill out the paperwork properly. It's easier to do everything up front than to go back later, as we all know. And then you have if you do not apply for your forgiveness, payments will start on your payment 10 months after the last day. But I highly, highly recommend that if you've used the funds, do not wait 10 months. We all know how quickly that goes. Unless you're a little kid, Christmas comes around, you're a little kid waiting for Christmas and it takes so long. But when you're a grown-up, it's like, wait a minute, wasn't Christmas just here? So 10 months can go by so quickly, especially if you're a small business and you're concentrating on either reinventing your business or trying to get employees back, something along that line. If you use the funds, start the process to ask for forgiveness so you don't have to worry about it. You may forget about it, come 10 months down the road, and all of a sudden the lender reaches out to you. You need to start making payments on that full amount, not not what you anticipate to be forgiven. So I highly recommend that you get that paperwork done if you've used those funds. Next slide, please. So we still have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, also known as EIDL, and this provides economic aid to businesses experiencing a temporary loss of revenue due to COVID-19. We had this last year. You were able to apply. We had the deadline December 31st of 2020. Under the new CARES Act, this has been extended to December 31st, 2021. Do not confuse that with PPP. PPP expires March. The EIDL loan is December 31st. The EIDL loan is a direct loan from SBA. The interest rate is 3.75 for businesses, 2.75 for nonprofit. It is a fixed rate for 30 years, no prepayment penalties, and some collateral will be required. Use of proceeds can be working capital, normal operating expenses, such as continuation of healthcare, rent, utilities, and fixed debt payments. Eligibilities are small businesses, so 500 employees or less, cooperatives, farming, agriculture. Those entities are eligible, as well as nonprofits. Next slide, please. And you can get a PPP loan and an EIDL loan. You can get both. You just have to make sure that you do not use the funds for the same purpose. So you can use your PPP. Let's say you use a PPP 100% for payroll, and then you receive the EIDL loan. You can use that for your operating expenses. So you can get both. So under this program last year, we had the EIDL advance, also referred to as the EIDL grant. At first, it came out that it was $10,000 to small businesses. But then the overwhelming applications, the first day alone, we had millions of applications. So then the amount of the advance was scaled back to $1,000 per employee, up to a maximum of $10,000. So if you had 3 employees, you got $3,000. If you had 12 employees, you got a maximum of $10,000. Well, now under this new CARES Act, we opened it up again, and no action is required until SBA contacts you, and I'll go over that. So the new program on this economic aid for the targeted EIDL advance. So we'll balance out any previous EIDL advance to the full $10,000. If the borrower is in 1, a low income community, 2, suffered greater than a 30% economic loss, and 3, has 300 employees or less. So if you received last year, let's say $2,000, and you meet this criteria of 1, 2, and 3, it's not and or, it's and low income and 30% and 300 employees, then you'll get the additional funds. Those who applied for the EIDL advance but did not receive the funds due to lack of funding will receive the full $10,000 if they meet the same requirements of 1, low income community, 2, suffered greater than 30% economic loss, and 3, has 300 or fewer employees. The SBA has identified that a low income community, there's not a map on our system yet, but they're coming out with one. The low income community is defined in section 4.5, so 45D of the Internal Revenue Code. So we're using subparagraphs 1 and 3 through 5. So again, that is the low income community that's defined by the IRS, section 45D, and then in parentheses E, excuse me, using subparagraphs 1 and 3 through 5. That's the definition of a low income community. And then SBA at some point will be coming out with a map. You input your business address to see if you would qualify. If you applied for an EIDL loan last year and you indicated on your application that you were interested in receiving the advance, we're going to go back and look at those applications. If you do not indicate you wanted it, you will not be contacted by us. SBA will reach out to those that will qualify via email. So make sure that if you do receive an email, it is from sba.gov, G-O-V, not sba.com, net, sba.phishing scam, sba.gov to verify that it is a true SBA employee. So we will reach out to you. You cannot go back. We're not taking any new applications. Those that were in the system and then may not have gotten the funds because the funds were exhausted, or you did not get the full 10,000, then we'll go back and determine if you are eligible. Next slide, please. If you are contacted by SBA, you will need to verify and submit information to us in order to receive that EIDL advance. One, you'll need to submit your 2019 federal tax returns. You'll need to provide your EIN and SSN number, Social Security number, as specified on your original EIDL application. Confirm the information on your original EIDL application and make sure that it's still accurate. Changes may require a manual review. So if there's some changes on there, it's going to delay. And then once we determine that, yes, you would be eligible, you pass the initial eligibility requirements, you'll be required to sign the 4506T for the SBA to obtain tax transcripts before the agency can approve and send money to you. The 4506T is an IRS form. It is a form that you sign allowing SBA to obtain your tax records, your tax returns. We need to verify that what you provided to us was what you provided to the IRS. Make sure that they're true and accurate. Next slide, please. The target EIDL advance, the application process, only one submission for each target EIDL advance can be made. So when we reach out to you and ask if you're still interested, you can only make that one application. Carefully review all your bank account information. We've had a lot of customers that are having a difficult time getting their disaster loan because they did not provide the proper information on their banking account. So there's no bank account for us to deposit the funds to, which is in delay. And then now you have to provide more information to us, canceled checks, routing numbers, everything along that line to make sure that it is not fraudulent. You need to definitely ensure that your information submitted is 100% correct. Due to the limited targeted EIDL advance amounts, SBA will not make any reconsiderations. So if you make an error on there and then we determine that, no, based on the information we received, you are not eligible, yet it was due to error, we will not go back and reconsider, do a reconsideration for you. SBA's goal is to complete the applications within 21 days, and applications are not considered complete until we receive that form 4506T from the IRS. Any questions about it once you've been informed that you are eligible? Then we have an email address of target advance at sba.gov. This is not an email address inquiring whether or not you qualify. If you send in that, you will not get an answer because it is not for that. That's the reason why SBA will reach out to you. If your loan is approved or if that grant is approved, then SBA will reach out to you. You'll receive an email and we will deposit the funds via ACH to the bank account that you provided to us. Next slide, please. So there is a new grant program that's coming out called the Shuttered Venue Operator Grants. Applications are not available yet. You cannot apply, but you do need to register on sam.gov. So you have to register your business in order to apply for this. Eligible entities are live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performing arts organizations, and motion picture theater operators, relevant museum operators, zoos, aquariums, talent representatives, and up to 5 business entities owned by an eligible entity. You must be in operation by February 29th, 2020 to be eligible, and venue promoters must have not applied for a PPP loan. So you need to determine if you meet one of these venue, if you're a venue operator, you determine which would be the better benefit for you to receive the grant or the PPP. If you apply for the PPP, you can't wait and see which one would be the better deal. You apply for the PPP, you are not eligible to apply for the grant. SBA came out maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago with frequently asked questions on the shuttered venue operator grant on who would be eligible for that. And it's a very, very good Q&A, something along the line of like wedding venues may not qualify, and it indicates why. So if you believe that maybe you would be eligible for this shuttered grant, I highly encourage you to go on our website and look at the frequently asked questions on the shuttered venue operator grant. Again, applications are not being accepted. There is not even an application out there, so you can't even review it to prepare for it. When it becomes available, we'll send that information out. Next slide, please. So this is a side-by-side letting you know what you can apply for the cross programs, the PPP, the shuttered venue operator grant, and the disaster loan. So on the PPP, yes, you can get a PPP loan and the EIDL loan. You can get both of those, but you cannot get the shuttered grant and the PPP loan. You cannot get both. You can't even apply. So it isn't receiving the funds on this program, it is applying. So it's not like apply and wait and see if the grant comes through. If you applied for PPP, not eligible. Again, on the next one, it's shuttered venue operator grant, not eligible to apply for a PPP, but you are eligible to apply for the EIDL loan. And then the disaster loan, the EIDL, you can apply for the PPP. You can apply for the shuttered venue grant if you decide that you don't qualify or don't want that grant. You can apply for the EIDL or the PPP, excuse me. And then the same business cannot apply for more than one EIDL loan. So if you received an EIDL loan last year, you cannot reapply for one. You may ask for an increase on your current loan, but you cannot submit a second application. There's only one application available for the EIDL, one loan available, excuse me. Next slide, please. Oh, and with the EIDL, if you applied for the EIDL loan last year, and then you didn't take it, or it's still being processed, if you apply for another one, you're just going to get an error code saying that there's already an application in the system. So there's no way to bypass that. SBA is going to have SBA backed loan debt relief for any current SBA 7A loan borrower, a 504 loan borrower, or a microloan borrower. So what this means is if you have one of those current loans, SBA backed loan, SBA will be making your payments for you on your behalf for, first it came out to be 3 months, now it's 2 months. So we'll be making 2 months payments for you. And then if you have a microloan, you have a little bit more payments made for you. And then if you do have a current SBA loan, you would receive a letter from SBA indicating that we will be making the payments on your behalf. You'll need to contact, because those are lender loans, you still need to contact your lender for any of the questions. SBA cannot give you the information on that because it's not carried by SBA, it's carried by that lender. Next slide, please. So there are key takeaways. Again, our loan programs, the PPP, payment protection, the debt relief, where we'll be making payments on your behalf, the EIDL, whether it's the target advance or the loan, and then the not out yet, but coming soon is a shuttered venue operator grant. Next slide, please. So our local resources, New Mexico office has various resource partners to assist you with all phases of your business. There are strong advocates for small businesses in our state. They're available to assist you with business plans, financials, PPP applications, and forgiveness, reinventing your business, because we're in a time where you may have to reinvent it, and then a wide range of other needs. So If you need assistance on, I just spoke to somebody yesterday, they didn't have access to a computer, so I directed them to the SBDC for assistance. So if they can assist you with your applications on to apply for PPP or even the forgiveness. However, they cannot fill them out for you. Nor can SBA. So I can assist you and give you some information, but I cannot fill out your forms for you, nor can they, nor can the lender. So if you go to the lender asking for forgiveness, they cannot fill out that forgiveness application for you. Again, on forgiveness, it's not automatic, you must apply. Next slide, please. So our New Mexico SBA Resource Partners, we have the SBDC, who graciously is hosting this webinar for us today, and they provide expert guidance to help you succeed in all phases of your business, providing training and coaching. On their website, they have training available on there, which you can sign up for. The majority of them are free. There's 18 centers in New Mexico to serve you. Their website is nmsbdc.org, and you can go on there and see their trainings and events that will be coming up and register for those. West is a women's business center, and they provide training and mentoring and business development and finance opportunities. They are a microloan. They are an SBA microlender. There are 6 centers in the state of New Mexico. They have personal counseling and training available. So if you go on their website at West, and it's West, WESST.org, they also have a link for any trainings that you can sign up for. Next slide, please. Then we have SCORE, and SCORE is volunteers that have been in the real world, business executives. They've owned businesses, sold businesses, ran businesses. We have 3 locations in New Mexico, but they have counselors nationwide. They also have on their site any previous trainings that they did. You don't have to sign up. It's not a live class. It's not a live webinar, but some that are recorded, and then you can participate in those. And that's at SCORE, SCORE.org. And then for the veterans out there, there is Vboc, the Veterans Business Outreach Center, and that's designed to assist service members, veterans, military spouses, helping you start or grow your business, or any other needs that you may have. They also have training. They have an excellent boots to business. So if you were in the military and looking to start a business, they have a great program on how to do that with special guest speakers. We have speakers from SBA that speak on their behalf and train some of their modules. And they're at vboc.org, and they also have their training and their calendar on that website. The next slide, please. So how can you stay connected with us? Any new information that comes out, we will post on the newsletter via Gov Delivery. You can sign up for that at sba.gov/updates. I highly encourage you to do that because things are just changing often. We also have Twitter at sba.gov. And then the Twitter for the local SBA is at SBA_New Mexico. You can also hit that link at twitter.com/SBA. There's an underscore there, New Mexico, to see everything that we posted on that. You can email us directly at New Mexico _DO, which is district office, at sba.gov. So I generally man that email address. So if you send an email through there, you'll get a response from me. And then we have our mainline phone number, which is 505-248-8225. That is a messaging. It's a call recording. So you call and you leave a message on there, and we'll return your phone calls. I'm generally the one that covers that as well, and we'll return your phone call. We also have other information out there, which is on our sba.gov. SBA.gov has a training center on there. You can go in there and look for anything that you're interested in, business plans, financials, whatever, and take little courses on that. If you're interested in maybe getting into government contracting, there's programs on that. On this COVID relief, if you're interested, you can go to sba.gov/COVID virus relief for all economic aid options. For the Payment Protection Program, it's sba.gov/PPP. And then the shuttered venue grant, which that's where you're going to get the frequently asked questions that I referred to earlier. That's sba.gov/SVO grant. And you can read up on the information there. So with that, I think their next slide is Q&A, and we can go through some of the question and answers that maybe we didn't cover during this.
Hey, Shelly.
Lady, oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, sounds good. Ed asks, I couldn't land a round 1 PPP when it first opened. I was able to get an EIDL for 1 employee. Can I apply for PP round 2 funds to pay back an existing EIDL?
If you did not receive the round 1, you cannot apply for round 2. You have to apply for round 2 if you've only received round 1.
Perfect. And if you have a follow-up to that, Ed, just put it in the Q&A. Mike asked, I applied for second round PPP and the turnaround time on the loan seems to be a lot longer than the first draw. Is there a reason for this? I received funding in 2 to 3 weeks, the first round, and second round has been over a month and still not received funding.
First of all, a month is way too long. So there's a holdup probably with the lender. So there has been, that's last time we did give instantaneous approvals, but with that, there was a lot of fraud. As I mentioned, if somebody were to apply online, it went to maybe 6 different lenders, and 6 different lenders tried to get the PPP loan. Some people did get more than 1 loan. So there are filters in place this time around to where you cannot apply duplicate applications are not accepted. If you applied for the first round and there were some errors in there, the EINs were incorrect, something along that line, the lender would receive a hold code or basically an error code. Information has been sent out to the lenders on how to correct those. I had just today a borrower that has been waiting 30 days. I told him that is unacceptable. It was put on hold and then somebody didn't go back and check it. If it's a large bank or a internet lender, that could be the case. Local lenders and community bankers are a little bit not up to date, but they're able to, it seems like they're able to filter those a little bit better. So if it's been 30 days, I highly suggest you contact that lender and find out what's going on. A lot of times they just have to resubmit it. And that's exactly what the borrower that I spoke to today talked to the lender. They resubmitted it. They said, oh, you know what? We never did submit it. So he's been waiting for 30 days when he could have got it 30 days ago. So always check with your lender.
Thank you, Shelly. An attendee asks, I have 2 LLC businesses under an S Corp. How would I apply? Separately and as individual LLCs or together as an S Corp?
I think on the S Corp, you have to apply together.
Perfect. An attendee asks, so both quarters can be in 2020, quarter 1 versus another quarter? Or
No,
do they add 1 quarter from 2020 and 1 from 2021?
it's quarter 1 of 2019 and quarter 1 of 2020. So it's not quarter 1 of 2019 and quarter 3 of 2020. It's the same quarter comparison.
Perfect, thank you. So an attendee asks, I have an LLC, no employees, only me, started mid-2018. I did only local events. I didn't make a lot of revenue. I couldn't sell anything during 2020. Am I eligible for anything?
Okay, so it's possible for round 1. It's possible to apply for round 1. Again, if they use the Schedule C, it's line 31. That's going to be the magic number. If line 31 is in a negative or a 0, then you would not be eligible.
Perfect, thank you. Mike asks, this is about their first round PPP loan. I was in the middle of applying for forgiveness when Congress had changed the parameters, and then I was unable to continue with the process. The lender has not since reopened for forgiveness. Will I be able to continue this soon, or shall I reach out to the lender with proceeding?
Lenders are accepting forgiveness and they are getting paid on forgiveness. The forgiveness portion did slow down a little bit due to the rollout of PPP2 and all those filters in place with the hold codes. But as I'm speaking to lenders, they are receiving funds, but there was a delay on those. The lender does have 60 days to review your forgiveness application. They submitted to SBA. SBA has 90 days. Some of the 90 days were went beyond that simply because of the new PPP process. So the $150,000 or less application is available, but you do need to check with your lender to see if they are accepting those.
Thank you. Rob asks, similar to Colleen's question above, I'm a single person LLC. I do not have a salary line in my accounting as it's just me. Sometimes I take some payment in kind, but most months there's no record of me being paid. I know how much I should be paid, but my business just isn't generating that kind of income yet.
So if they're asking, they could apply for, they probably didn't apply for round one, so they'd have to apply for round one. Single person LLC, again, probably Schedule C, line 31.
Thank you. Susan asked, if we receive PPP Draw 1 and intend to apply for Draw 2, do we apply for forgiveness once for both loans or twice, once for each draw?
You would apply twice, one for each draw, because they're used for separate purposes.
Perfect. Marie asked, my EIDL application was denied because the SBA cannot verify my information with the IRS. The IRS has yet to process my 2019 taxes, and they say it may take as long as another 3 months before they do. What can I do in order to get an EIDL loan?
Unfortunately, you have to wait for the IRS for them to process this. I just talked to a borrower the other day. They've reached out to the IRS, and IRS did say because of COVID and the overwhelming responses, they have slowed down. So you have to continue to wait, unfortunately.
Perfect. Micah had a similar question. So for Micah, you will have to wait until that 2019 return is processed. John asked, applied for an EIDL this year and did not get it. Who can I contact to find out what kicked us out?
You can always contact our disaster center. The number is 1-800-659-2955. Now, I will tell you, this is a loan. So we look at a couple of things. We look at the credit to make sure that you have the ability to repay that loan. And then we also look at when we say ability to repay it, that's the reason why we ask for your cost of goods and so forth. There's a lot of people that made errors on their cost of good, maybe adding an extra zero. So it looked like it was in the negative. So it looked like their cash flow is in the negative. If your cash flow is in the negative, then we determine that you cannot afford to make a loan payment. So you need to double check that. That's why I say double check everything before you hit send. To make sure, because it is a loan, we need to be able to verify that you can pay that loan back. So if they did not give you a reason on why you did not get it, they should have sent you a letter on why it wasn't made. But you can contact the disaster center. Fortunately, I don't have access to any disaster applications, so I'm unable to review those.
Thank you. Dave asks, our organization hosts technical conferences and workshops. Do we qualify under Shuttered Venue Operators Grant?
That one I will refer to the frequently asked questions. I don't want to say yes or no based on because I'm not familiar with the business. So check that frequently asked questions to see if it would be, if your organization fits into what's eligible.
Thank you. An attendee asks, our business did not make money in 2019, but made money in 2020. As such, we did not apply for the first PPP loan. Do we qualify for either the first or second draw PPP?
You may be able to apply for the first round, but chances are on the second round, no, because you have to indicate that there's a loss. And unfortunately, that's happened on a lot of businesses, that they made some money in 2020, so there wasn't a loss to compare to. So you may be eligible for round one.
Perfect. William asks, if we are granted a PPP loan, do we have to have the same employees on staff that were reported for the reporting quarter being used?
No.
Perfect. An attendee asks, I applied for an EIDL loan, received $1,000, but was denied a loan because of a mistake I made on the application. I have been trying since May 2020 to get the mistake corrected or withdraw the application so that this person could reapply. However, no one has ever helped. SBA has requested many forms and info, and I have complied and still have not received any communication. Who can I contact to get results?
That person can contact me and I can send it up to a contact I do have in the disaster center. So send me an email on that. If you have an application number, send that and they will give me an up-to-date information. If we've requested information, I mean, the applicants that we received were overwhelming. We were just not prepared for this. And that there was a lot of delay time on that. So send it to me and I will forward it up to my contact in the disaster center.
Thank you, Shelly. I put up the first page of the slide, so it has your contact on the page
Okay.
right now. An attendee asked, how do we ask for an increase on an EIDL loan?
On the EIDL loan, you would send an email for reconsideration to SBA. And you know what? Let me see if I can find that address. I'll try to find the address and get it over to you because it's like PCD Recon, I think it is, at sba.gov, but don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% certain. So I'll have to look that up first.
Thank you. Rose asks, what are the parameters for forgiveness for the second round PPP?
It is the same, 60% or more used for payroll. And then the other 40% can be used for your other operating costs. If you do not, it's not an all or nothing. So let's say you don't use 60%, you use 50%. There's 10% you did not use for the payroll. That 10% and or more, depending on what the other expenses were, could turn into your unforgiven amount.
An attendee asked, how do farms and ranches listed registered as a C Corp without employees apply for PPP?
How do farms and ranches listed
So
registered
they're just a C Corp with no employees?
they're still eligible to apply. If they file a Schedule F? If they file a Schedule F, that's on line 9 is what they use.
I think the same attendee put a follow-up says, how does a sole proprietor rancher with no employees that has taxes filed on IRS Form 4835 rather than on Schedule F qualify for PPP?
That one I don't know. I'll have to look at the notice that came out determining what is used to, what line is used for the different entities.
I'm asking.
Let me go back to, I'm sorry, let me go back to this email address for reconsideration. This is if you were denied, you would send out the reconsideration, or you're requesting an increase. The email address is pdcreconds@sba.gov.
Okay, I chatted that to all attendees and panelists.
Okay.
Can you make sure that I put it correctly in the chat, Shell?
Sure.
Thank you, because I have a tendency to get things backwards sometimes.
Oh, it's on the chat. Okay, hold on. PDCRE. That's CRECOND. Yes, that's correct.
Perfect, thank you. Brenda asked, how do you apply for forgiveness? I don't know. I didn't know you had to. I assumed it was automatic. So I'm guessing, Brenda, this is for PPP round 1.
No, there is no automatic forgiveness. You would apply for forgiveness through the lender.
Okay, so contact your lender directly.
Yes.
Marcus asked, my business opened in June 2020. Can I receive a loan to purchase equipment or supplies?
In June of 2020? Did I read that? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you did.
No, they're not eligible. They had to be in business prior to February 15th of 2020 to be eligible.
Thank you. An attendee asked, I submitted an application 7 months ago for an EIDL loan and I'm still waiting. When I call customer service, they state that my application is waiting for a loan officer to process. Who can help me with this?
Well, they can send me an email and I can send it up, but chances are it's still in the queue, and that's unfortunate. They are taking months on some of them, but if they request additional information, it's important that you send that information to them. Make sure that when you do email them back, your application number is indicated in the subject line, and make sure you identify everything. So if they ask you for the 4506T, you have that 4506T and it's labeled. Maybe not all jump together, because somebody has to basically go through and file those or refile them or separate them. So it's always a good rule of thumb to separate those out, identify them so they're easier to read for somebody who receives them.
Thank you, Shelly. Do you have time? We have 14 more questions open. Do you want to end right at 3 or do you want to continue with these questions?
I can go on. I'm fine with that. And if
Okay.
people want to sign off, they can do that as well.
So let me open up the questions to the phone callers. Let me allow the person who's calling from a phone number ending in 8740 to speak. If they have a question, you just have to unmute yourself. I'm going to allow the person calling from phone number 6501 to speak. You have to unmute yourself if you wish to ask a question. Okay, I don't think they have any questions, so I'll continue with the Q&A. What if I started in 2019 but had no revenue until January of 2020? Are you saying I can use Q1 of 2020 as a comparison to another quarter later in 2020?
You're only comparing those for the second round of PPP. You're not comparing those for the first round. So you would be able to apply for round 1, but chances are you will not qualify for round 2. If you received income in 2020 but had nothing in 2019, your comparison will show an increase, not a decrease.
And then another question, why would a business being viable prior to February 15, 2020 be applicable then?
Well, because this is based on the pandemic. So these programs became available because the pandemic affected their businesses. So anybody that was that started a business after that date, they're opening the business knowing that what kind of crisis the nation has been in.
Thank you. Susan asks, can you review the deadline for PPP forgiveness application on draw 1?
All of them on draw 1 and 2, you do have, I believe it's 2 years to apply for forgiveness, but after 10 months, payments will begin. You'll need to start making payments on your loan if you've not asked for forgiveness.
Thank you. And attendee asks, what about businesses started in 2020 prior to February 15th?
They're not eligible.
Perfect. Health workers ask, would participants get a copy of this presentation? Yes, we will email the presentation out. An attendee asks, can you withdraw an EIDL application, then resubmit?
No. You withdraw it, then you reapply. It'll say that there's already an application in the system. So I'm not sure why somebody would want to withdraw it. You can fix any errors on there, but withdrawing it, it's going to delay it even further.
Okay. An anonymous attendee asks, how or who do we ask for a PPP increase?
There's only certain businesses that are allowed for a PPP increase on round 1. Round 2 allows, let's say anybody in that 72 NAISA code, they're allowed 3.5 in round 2 only. So they cannot go back and ask for an increase on round 1. So there's only certain businesses that are allowed an increase. So you would work with the lender that has your first PPP loan.
Thank you. Colleen asks, oh, my husband and I actually have a partnership. He has his work and I have mine, but they both are reported together on IRS taxes. Should I have said 2 employees, or does a partnership mean I should use our Schedule C as proof of payroll?
You're going to use your Schedule C. I'm assuming this is for PPP. So you'll still provide your Schedule Cs.
Even though I think they only have one entity. So just the partnership, 2 different services. So it would just be they would just be considered sole props, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yvonne asks, what is the time frame for using PPP round 2 loan? 8 weeks or 24 weeks?
It's either or, but with that being said, I'll clarify that a little bit. Let's say you use the fund, you can't use the funds in 8 weeks. You have to go 10 weeks to use all the funds. That means when you ask for forgiveness, you're going to indicate that your your covered period is a 24-week date. So you're on your application for forgiveness, you would list the ending date being 24 weeks. If you've exceeded 8 weeks, that means you have money left over, and that those funds will not be forgiven. You can use the money in 2 weeks, and but you need to use an 8-week period. If you go beyond that 8 week, then you would use the 24-week period.
Very good. Rose asks, for the second round, the rule of not paying an employee less than 25% of their payroll, will this be 25%? Will this 25% be annualized against their first quarter pay in 2019?
It isn't for the employee on the payroll. It is to show that your company took a loss of 25% in revenue during last year compared to 2019. That's the reason why behind the 25. Because there are a lot of businesses, and good for them, they've actually been more profitable during this pandemic than they had been the year before, and good for them. That means they're not eligible to apply for round 2 PPP. So it isn't necessarily the employee rule, it is the reduction of revenue.
Thank you. Colleen asked, if I actually get an idle, can I use it to cover past due rents?
That is possible.
Perfect. Dave asked, we use IRS Form 1065. Where would we check to see if we are eligible for PPP?
What is
So,
1065?
Let's see. That sounds like a partnership.
We have listed on SBA, and I'll be happy to answer this one directly if he wants to email me, but we have on SBA have all the on different IRS forms that they use, what line to use and who qualifies. So I'll be happy to provide that information.
Okay, Dave, please contact Shelly directly at the email address on the screen. Winman asks, what if you are a service company? How do you put in cost of goods sold when you are in service?
Are they referring to the idle application?
I would imagine it's the idle for with the cost of goods sold.
So do they not have when?
Well, cost of goods sold for a service business is typically postage, direct labor of your employees, and one more thing, it's not popping to my mind, but that's typically what COGS for a service business are.
Okay, so when you apply for the idle, you're going to prepare you're going to provide tax documents, and then you're also provide I think it's a balance sheet that you're going to provide to them. And I believe it was in the first part that the borrower could not indicate how much money that they were requesting. We would look at their finances to determine how much they could afford. I don't know if that's changed. I hadn't heard that it's changed, but that's where the number comes from on the idle.
Okay, and it's usually on your Schedule C if you do a Schedule C and on the first or second line. Robert asks, we received a PPP loan with Wells Fargo for the first loan and also applied for the second loan over a month ago and haven't been able to get them to respond. What is the best way to find our status since they aren't responding to us?
Unfortunately, we don't have any information on applications in process. I can only pull a loan up that basically has been booked. So if an application is with the lender, they need to continue working with that lender.
Thank you. An attendee asks, yes, I did all of that, but still no follow-up. We will, that one might need a little bit more explanation. So if you could put some more explanation, we'd appreciate it. Let's see what Marcus asks. How can a nonprofit receive an idle loan?
The nonprofit would apply. You apply at sba.gov/disaster, and everything's online as well.
Perfect. Sandra from our network asks, Marcus asked if he could receive a loan for equipment and supplies if he opened his business in June 2020. Shelly, will you possibly revisit that in relation to a new SBA loan, not a PPP or idle, possibly a regular 7A or 504?
Yes, he would be eligible for an SBA loan, which is a lender loan. So they apply with the lender. The lender will review it to determine if they would choose to use SBA for that loan or regular conventional loan. So they would apply with the lender for that loan.
Perfect, thank you. Patrick asks, as a new business in late 2019 and an LLC, I made income in 2019 and 2020. I used tax form 1065. How do I determine if I can apply for first round PPP?
That's a similar question that we had on the earlier one. Let me look real quick at the notice. Let's
Okay.
move on. I'll go back to that when I look it up, okay?
Sounds good. Marcus says, I started my business in June 2020 because I was laid off from my job. My employer filed for bankruptcy. How can I obtain money to expand my business?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's read that one again.
So Marcus started his business in June of 2020 because he was laid off. His employer went bankrupt, and he wants to obtain money to expand his business.
That one would have to be a regular 7A loan. So he can apply for a loan with the lender. So it won't be the PPP loan, nor would it be the EIDL loan. Because his business wasn't affected by the pandemic. He started a business during that time, but he is eligible to apply for a regular small business loan.
So I probably, Marcus, visit your SBDC and ask him about your lending options. That would probably be a good bit.
Or
Blanca
the
asked-
lender that he does his business banking with, it's always best to start with them.
For sure. Thank you, Shelly. Blanca asks, what if I applied for EIDL and qualified? Can I apply for a PPP loan or second EIDL loan?
You
Not
can
a
apply
second, I
for no second round of EIDL. There's only one. It's one and done. But you can ask for an increase, which is on that reconsideration email. And yes, you can apply for the PPP loan round 2.
Perfect, thank you. Susan asks, for round 2, are you looking for a 25% decrease in gross receipts or net receipts?
It's gross.
Perfect.
Let me revisit this for partnerships at IRS form 1065. It's the sum of lines 2 and 8 minus line 6.
Perfect, thank you, Shelly. Colton asked, I have a customer who has applied for a second draw. I've been unable to submit the application because the platform suggests this person has multiple applications on file. I don't believe this to be true and don't know how to verify this in order to make the submission.
Oh, Colton, you little sly dog. I'm going to call you this afternoon.
Okay, Michael asks, seasonal business open 8 months each year. Would average monthly payroll be divided by 8 or 12 for the 3.5 times?
Oh, seasonal is they've expanded the months on that. So let me look that one up.
Okay.
And do we have another one while I'm looking this up?
We do. So an attendee asked, I still have not received follow-up. When I submitted my EIDL application, went through the reconsideration, submitted the required documentation, including the 4506T, and send several emails to the 2 reconsideration email addresses, and still no update on the loan being funded. It's been 7 months and I still don't have an update on my EIDL loan application. Who can assist me?
You can send an email to us and then I can forward it on. But we can't look it up, and I only have a contact person in the disaster center, and they've actually done a really good job. When I've sent those up, they get back to me either that day or the following day. They've been super great about that.
Perfect, thank you. So and then they followed up. So they sent an email to you with their application number. So I guess that's the first step, and then you could forward it on.
Yes, and then I can review it, and then I forward it on to our contact, and then what they're doing, which is super great, they copy me on the email, copy back to me, but then they email the customer directly and copy me.
Perfect. And then we still have the seasonal one open, but I'm going to look in the chat, see if there's anything that might have been chatted over.
Okay.
Let's see. We received a PPP loan for the first loan and applied for the second loan with Wells Fargo over a month ago. We have tried contacting the bank for clarification and they are not responding. What would it be best for us to do to check on the second loan application?
Unfortunately, they have to continue to work with their lender.
Yeah, the lender.
Mhm.
Okay. I just received the first draw on idle based on 2019 tax returns. When 2020 tax returns are completed, would I be able to apply for the PPP loan?
So they got the idle.
It says, yeah, they just received the first draw on EIDL based on 2019 tax returns. And then they're asking, I guess they haven't filed their 2020, but they're asking, would they be able to apply for the PPP loan?
Yes, they can apply for the PPP, yes.
Okay. And then, yes, you will get a copy of this presentation. How do I know who the lender is? I logged into my SBA account and it does not show me.
If you logging into an SBA account will not show you who the lender is because that's a lender loan. If
So
you
that-
logged into the SBA, that's an idle to where you make payments. I'm saying that's probably pay.gov. I think that's where you make your payments for the idle. It won't have any information on your PPP loan because that's a lender loan.
Perfect. If I had revenue in 2019, then zero in 2020, do I qualify for the second round of PPP?
Okay, if they had revenue in 2020, but not in 19,
No, they had revenue in 19, but none in 2020.
then they, there's going to be a couple of things. One, the lender needs to show that you're still in business, because if you had no revenue whatsoever, yes, you could qualify. But in addition to that, the lender needs to verify that you're still in business.
Perfect. Let me see if I missed anything in the chat. No, that's all in the chat. Oh, let's see, something came in the Q&A. Seasonal business. Okay, that's the seasonal question.
Yeah, I'm looking that one up and I can't, I know it's out here. I just can't seem to find it. It must be on a different form. I'll be happy to answer that one.
Should we have Michael contact you directly?
Yes, let's have him do that so he doesn't wait for me to scroll through. I don't know how many pages this is, but so I don't have to scroll through and I can give him a definitive answer on that. So either email the Mexico District Office email or direct me or email me directly. That we're fine with that as well.
Thank you very much. And then let's see. If I'm planning to move to Florida, can I still apply in New Mexico or should I apply in Florida? I'm not sure which loan they're referring to. For the PPP. Did we lose you, Shelly?
I don't hear Shelly.
You might have lost Shelly momentarily. I'm going to have to tell you, let's see, Brenda, you're going to have to email Shelly directly on that one to shelly.brown@sba.gov because we've lost Shelly momentarily and I don't know if she'll be able to get back on. That one's a good question, Brenda, too. And the email is Shelly. It's on the screen right now. SHELLEY.Brown, BROWN @SBA.gov.